Welcome to Healers Talk Healing, the podcast where we gather to explore the art and science of holistic healing, uncovering the secrets to a happier, healthier you. I'm your host, Nina Ganguli, and together we will delve into the intriguing world of holistic healing, delving into the mind-body connection, ancient wisdom, and natural remedies. Get ready for enlightening stories, thought-provoking expert interviews, and practical tips that will empower you to unlock your true potential and embrace a vibrant, balanced life. Whether you're an experienced wellness enthusiast or simply curious about the power of healing, join us on this exhilarating journey as we share the wisdom and insights that can truly transform your life. It's time to embark on a voyage towards a happier, healthier you. So, without further ado, let's dive into the captivating world of Healers Talk Healing. Welcome to this episode of Healers Talk Healing. Join Lynne, DeVerges, and I, Nina Ganguli, in a deep, transformative conversation about healing, growth, and the power of forgiveness. In today's episode, we explore how forgiveness is not just about letting go, but it's about reclaiming our power, shifting our consciousness, and embracing personal growth. Through personal stories, reflections, and insights, we uncover how radical acceptance and forgiveness can free us from past pain and open the door to a more peaceful, empowered life. Whether you're on a healing journey or just beginning to explore the power of self-awareness, this episode would leave you with profound insights and practical wisdom. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's dive into this powerful conversation on healing, transformation, and the miracles that come with forgiveness.
Pocket full of miracles are 10 stories, as I said, that are excerpts of different experiences in my life. And there's one that's called Forgive. And I think forgive is a very poignant aspect of what we need to do in order to grow. Because without forgiveness, there is no growth. Without forgiveness, there is no learning or becoming woke. I don't know if that's still a decent word or a popular word. But to forgive is to shift consciousness from out there to in here. That's what forgiveness really is. And I believe that so many people, because we have been taught and because we are beings who sometimes have a challenge taking responsibility for things, looking at our own stuff and all of that. And so what we do is we want to put it on someone else, something else, or what have you. Yes, there are circumstances in life that do come up and happen. But the reality is no one does anything to us. Nothing happens to us in specifically. Yes, there are circumstances we live through, but as human beings who are here in the time frame that we are, our sole focused purpose, whether we're aware of it or not, is growth. It's what we do automatically.
I agree 100%. And hey, welcome into our conversation today on Healers Talk Healing with the incredible Lynne DeVerges and myself, Nina Ganguli. And it looks like today we're going to be talking about forgiveness, which is one of my favorite topics, actually.
Okay.
I have read a book called Radical Forgiveness. It's actually on my desk because a friend of mine was asking, well, what book should my book club read? They're into growth and spiritual growth. She's with a yoga group.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. And I'm like, radical forgiveness. I think it's it's really all about what you were saying. It's kind of stepping back and
Mhm.
looking at, okay, so if I want a certain thing in life, which is most people are looking for happiness, joy, peace, however they come to it at the end, not at the end of the day, but throughout their journey, however they come to that happiness or peace, joy. I do believe it starts with that, looking at your life and looking where you can make choices, where you
Yes.
can have that saying, okay, to me, forgiveness. So I'm going all over the road because there's so much in here that wants to come out. But to me, literally, forgiveness is aligned with radical acceptance.
Okay.
None of us can change the circumstances that have passed, and
That's
yet
true.
we sit and ruminate about, wow, I wish I had said this. I wish this has happened. I wish I had never met this person, had this conversation, taken this job, bought this car, whatever it may be that is sort of in the way that you're ruminating about. And I know I'm a ruminator for sure.
Well, I think everyone is, in different ways and to different extents. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that without all of those things that one wishes they hadn't done or had done differently, or oh man, if only I had and all of that, those are the things that brought you to where you are today. And wouldn't you say that today you are at your best self more so than yesterday?
Yes. And, just to get a little more into that conversation, I had to do a lot of accepting and forgiving
Yes.
in order to see the lesson. If I hadn't done the accepting and the forgiving, I wouldn't have been able to now look back and say, oh, okay, and it's an individual thing. Some people may look at it and say there's no lesson there, and some people will say, okay, there was a lesson. But I'm looking at my history and saying, okay, now I understand why this happened or why this
Mhm.
fell into place. And yeah, it was not fun. It was actually horrible. And but I can take what it's meant to teach me. I
Mhm.
can grow from there. I am who I am because of all of the things that have happened and not happened in
Mhm.
my life. All of those dreams and wishes you wanted to be fulfilled and didn't get fulfilled. We always talk about the things that have happened, but there's also a lot of things that we
That's true.
wanted that didn't happen, that ended up being for our greater good. And also forgiving those things that didn't work out, that didn't sorry, not that didn't work out, but like didn't happen that you wanted to happen. I,
Yes.
I so badly wanted to become a project manager, so badly. I took the lessons. I went to school. I did some extra courses, and I applied many times to be a project manager, and it never happened.
Which clearly was not meant to happen.
And yet
So,
I use those skills all the time.
of course, and I was just going to say, yet you're still a project manager in what you do, whether it be in your home, your work, your life. You're a project manager. You're using those skills. You said it exactly right. And I believe when we stop to really examine not only what's taken place, but how we think about it and the feelings we have around it, and ask ourselves, is that really the essence of the way we want to move forward? Or should we just take the essence of what we've gained from that situation to forgive ourselves? It's always about forgiving yourself.
Mm.
Because we spoke before about what everyone that you see, interact with, have a relationship with, experience is you. So, how can it be something outside of you when you're the person that's always in the story.
Yeah. This is this
So,
is true, right? So
yeah.
in our experience of life, we
Hmm.
tend to forget that it's our experience of life, and it is it's like that's my movie. I'm
Hmm.
the director, I'm the actor, I'm the story writer, I'm all of it, the producer.
Hmm.
And so it is always an inside job.
Always, always, constantly. So I wrote this little book. Oh my gosh. Um, what year are we in? So this must have been 27 years ago.
Mm,
And it's called Pocket Full of Miracles. And it's 10 true stories of what I considered miracles, but a lesson with each miracle.
mm.
And before our coming together this morning, I was reading one of the stories and I'm like, oh, wow. And it was a story of forgiveness. And I was like, okay. So that was the beginning. That experience,
Mm.
as parts of it were wonderful and parts of it were didn't feel as wonderful, actually on a whole was, one of the best experiences I could have had, because it was a precursor that led me to where I am today.
Mm.
Without that experience, not only would I not have um, really delved deeper sooner around forgiveness, but I also would have just continued to move along in the same consciousness. And I guarantee you, I would probably be an executive VP, at some bank somewhere,
Yeah,
or an
yeah.
attorney, instead of doing what I'm doing now, this is what I love. This is my passion, is to assist people in their own journey and their growth and personal process. So that's, it just speaks to it. It's a short story, and I've been debating whether I should read it or not. Um, Now that I've admitted that it's
I think you need to read it now. I think the listeners are going to be like, wait a minute, you can't leave us hanging. You've got to share that main story, the impetus to who you are today.
all right. I will read it. It starts, each story starts
Mm,
actually with a quote from A Course in Miracles. I
okay.
know some of the listeners out there may not be familiar with A Course in Miracles, but it's a powerfully written book that you cannot just read with your intellect. You have to read it with your spirit, really, truly. And there are many people around the globe who help interpret it. But anyway, it starts with this. This is the Course in Miracles. Can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? Nothing that you remember that made your heart sing with joy has ever brought you even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring you, for you will see the Son of God.
Mm.
I think it's just a beautiful quote. And that's how I feel also about forgiveness, because when you see the Son of God, you're seeing yourself again reflected back, right? Okay, so here's the story. I've changed the names to protect the guilty.
Love that.
All right. So Barbara, young and naive, was talked into a blind date by her friend Shirley. The arrangement was that Barbara would be at Shirley's house for a visit around the time Henry was expected. He was Shirley's tenant. Shirley had really talked him up, describing Henry as a man with a good sense of humor who liked to have fun. He was a fantastic musician and, of course, incredibly handsome. When Barbara arrived for her meeting, Shirley took it upon herself to show Barbara some of Henry's photo albums so she could get a look at how gorgeous Henry was. For Barbara, Those photo albums revealed a lot more than just Henry's looks. He had pictures of girls from all over the world with descriptive captions of what he liked, detailing what he remembered most about each one. This was his collection of women, stretching from port to port. Barbara decided right then and there she would only meet this man, but nothing else. She was curious to see what type of character he was to have collected women the way children do toys. When Henry walked into the house, Barbara was engaged in conversation with a few of his friends who had come by just prior to his arriving. She acted as if she did not see him, yet out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of him. She noticed how he was intently watching her. Finally, they were officially introduced. When Barbara looked up to greet him, she tried not to show how taken she was with his handsome appearance, which was overshadowed only by his charming demeanor. And that's all it took. Barbara knew if he asked her out, she would not be strong. She would not be strong enough to resist. So much for firm thoughtfulness. 2 nights later, Henry and Barbara went out on their first date. They fell in love and quickly moved in together. Their relationship sizzled with all of the passion young love brings. For the first 6 months, it was the most perfect relationship Barbara had ever experienced. In fact, it was almost too perfect. It wasn't long, though, before Barbara found out Henry was seeing another woman. Being in the Navy, Henry traveled frequently. The woman he was seeing lived in another city several hundred miles away. This was the nightmare Barbara knew she might face, but hoped she would never have to. How foolish she was to believe she could change him. Sound familiar, ladies? That living with her would be enough for him. Once she found out about the other woman, she began to realize that the other woman was really one out of several other women. Henry was a woman magnet. He had offers from women the way many celebrities do. Yet Henry never left Barbara. He continuously told her how much he loved her. He promised he would change, straightening up his act as long as she didn't leave him. For periods of time, he did appear to be more attentive, more sincere, and more loving, but it only lasted until the next woman came along. Barbara continued to stay with Henry for 3 long years with many disappointments, nights of tears, fits of anguish. The final straw came, however, when Henry took Barbara's sports car, telling her he was going to the store and would be back shortly. Henry was gone for 3 days. Barbara had no idea where he was. Henry was gone for 3 days. Barbara knew not where. When he called to say the ship was leaving that day for a month and she could pick up her car at the pier, Barbara was furious. I will use the word enraged. She screamed, "Enough is enough." When Henry returned, all of his things were packed, waiting outside the house for him. He left eagerly to live with the woman whose house he had visited for those 3 days previously. But it wasn't long, though, before she told him to leave her house, too. Having nowhere to go, he told Barbara he missed her, asking her, even begging her to take him back. He seemed sincere. Barbara said, nope, no way can I take you back. But if you need a place to stay, I will help you for 2 weeks only so you can find another home. During the time Henry lived at the other woman's house, Barbara focused on moving on with her life. She was angry, bitter, resentful, hating Henry and everything he represented. But it was an intense process for Barbara as she acknowledged the anger first at him and then surprisingly at herself. After all, she knew what type of man he was, and she let her emotions steer her into ignoring the evidence. Her own arrogance and thinking she could change him prevailed, but in the end, all she was left with was the truth that indeed he never did it to her. She did it to herself. It was a hard lesson, but Barbara woke up to the realization that her arrogance and pride created an illusion, showing her what she wanted to believe about herself and the situation instead of facing reality. The reality was that Henry, too, had a problem with ego. He clung to the belief that he was powerful because women found him attractive and wanted to be with him. This was a false sense of power, but he was the only one who could change himself. Barbara found it in her heart to forgive him. She let go of the bitterness, the anger, the resentment, the hatred she felt for him, only to discover she remembered the good times, the happy times. She knew she would never want to be together with him again. Yet she knew that in forgiving Henry, she had grown far beyond this consciousness existence. She knew she loved him, but no longer from an obsessive, self destructive place. Now she came from a place of compassion and wishing him well on his life's journey. Barbara knew in her forgiveness she had given him a greater love. So I ended it with to forgive is for giving love. It's to give love to another person. You may not want to see or be around that person again, but in your heart, you want that person to thrive and do well. And that's really part of the key to forgiveness. It's not forgetting what happened, but it's acknowledging and taking responsibility, right, for yourself and your participation in whatever it is. And therefore, it's being able to love the other person unconditionally and want the best for them too. And so the miracle is when you forgive another, you are divinely loving yourself as well.
Mm.
So that was a very poignant period of my life because it was a very deep love that I experienced at the time, and yeah, it really it helped turn some things around. Sometimes out of great pain
Mm.
comes the as we begin to heal. Out of great pain comes the aha moments, the realizations, the desire so deeply to move through that pain. And so it's the pain that helps us move and take steps toward where we need to go, that then we find ourselves not on this path that we had been on, which may have been self-destructive, which was in my case self-destructive, but you move on another path that really opens your life in a whole different way. So forgiveness is a powerful, powerful thing. And it's okay to be angry and upset and shout and scream and in your mind blame and all of those things. But at some point, if you really want to live the kind of life and experience the things that you choose to experience, you cannot hold on to that energy. You have to be able to forgive, and then you can really move on.
Yeah, I think inside of your story and inside of other stories that I've heard about forgiveness or talking to people who are not in that space, have not gotten there. It's it it's the word itself. It's like for me that I have this word, this feeling around the word submission,
Hmm.
even though it's a very powerful word, and it's it depends on what you're submitting to and the context in which you see the word. So, there are those who think forgiveness is uh like a giving up or a giving in or letting you off the hook sort of conversation in their
Yes,
mind.
about that.
And it's not. No, it's not, but it's what you said about the process. It's about saying, okay, this hurt me, it made me angry, and I'm going to process those feelings. And I think that's really important too. Inside of the world of forgiveness, no one is asking anyone to be a martyr here and be like,
Right.
yeah, no, it's okay. You did me wrong. I'm all right. No. There is the screaming, the swearing, the down and ugly and deep crying and not feeling very forgiving in the
Mhm.
as you're processing. But I will say, based on my own experience, and based on my own experience, that forgiveness is like a gift you give yourself. It's for
Yes, it is.
you. It is, coming from, and I don't think everyone, I have not really shared on in this podcast that, I experienced abuse for many years in my life. And I have really fully forgiven my abuser. Now, I will throw in a caveat that happened after their passing. So I want to be real and authentic that I'm not sure if what that journey would have been like if that person was still in my life or still alive.
Hmm.
But what I did learn is through forgiveness, because it did take me a long time, was that it didn't take up space anymore.
Yes, it's true.
It didn't take up space in my body. It didn't take up space in my mind. I didn't walk around feeling anymore that I was owed something, because I sure did walk around like, hey, I went through this. I am
Hmm.
owed happiness. I am
Hmm.
owed a reprieve. And life doesn't show up that way, just by the way. You know what I mean? And in my experience, the letting go of how it should have been, what it should have been, how they should have been, and they weren't, um, has been the most, the deepest gift that I have given myself. And it still doesn't always come easy. You know,
No,
you
it doesn't.
practice. It's like a muscle. Like, think about this. We want to avoid pain. That's the way we kind of were through evolution, right? That's about survival.
Hmm.
Avoid pain, do what you need to survive, to get through things. And the pain is there to help you grow. It's like when you were talking, I was thinking about like when you're working out. When you go and do a workout, in order for your muscles to get stronger, to do what they can do, to work optimally, you
Hmm.
have to tear the muscle tissue. And
Hmm.
when you do that, and then as it repairs, it doesn't feel very nice. You know,
Right.
go to the gym.
And when it repairs, it creates a little scar tissue and so forth, but that's also what bulks you up or, makes you look. Hmm.
It gives the result that you're looking for strength. I'm going to talk about
Yes.
and looks and whatever it is you want, but for those of you who are listening and are not maybe sitting in that place of hurt, sitting in that place of pain, and thinking to yourself, why me? We all have those thoughts, they fleet through. One of the things that helped me was, why not me? I'm not any more special than anybody else.
Hmm.
And using that analogy of, so this is like a workout. I am going through, I'm just going to say, this is my forgiveness workout. I'm going to practice this thing. I'm going to go through this thing. Yeah, it's easy to talk about once you've been through it and you're on the other end. However, it is truly powerful. And I love what you said about it being divine and allowing that divinity inside of you
Hmm.
to come through. And
To come through. Right, exactly. And to see the divine in everything else. Know that it's also always a reflection. Here's something else, too, because we all come here for purposes of growth and learning. Before we enter this world as spiritual beings, even without physical bodies, there are various things we want to learn. And we all, whether we acknowledge it or not, which is why I say this is an inside job, make choices along the way how we're going to learn those things. I chose the relationship with him, not consciously. Well, yes, consciously in that moment, I chose a relationship with him.
Yep.
But really, the bigger picture is I chose the relationship so that I could step into where I needed to be, and a promise that was made when I was 14 that I would do this work,
Mm.
but was trying to escape. And so as a result, I found my way unconsciously to that point in time. So when you even look at it from a broader perspective, was he to blame? No. I made the choice to learn in a way that had to be so viscerally, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually painful that it was okay, not doing that again, not like that. Mm-mm. And I
Mhm.
never have. Nope. And sometimes that's what we choose. But we have to take responsibility for the fact that that's what we choose. And
Mm.
so when we begin to understand those just kind of fundamental things and practice, so we can intellectually understand it, but it may not be what I call enriched in the soul, the spiritness of it.
Mhm.
Okay, because there are a lot of concepts, a lot of things that we say and other people speak about, and all kind of books are written about, and on and on and on. Much of it is intellectual,
Mhm.
but when you remove the intellect and you continue to practice, you start off with the I have to share this real quickly. There's a woman, well, there was a couple who was married, and during their marriage, I wish I could remember their name. You all have to forgive me. I'm not so good at names, and this has been almost 40 years ago that I met them and heard this story. But anyway, they married. He had a teaching position in, I believe it was Japan, or one of the countries overseas, and she became pregnant there, and she was, doing whatever she did at home. She wasn't working, but he worked, and he said, "You know what? Let's go to dinner later tonight." And she said, "Okay." And he said, "So I'll be back home such and such a time. Be ready." Well, she was ready, and he didn't come. And no, I know what it was. She went out. That's what. She went out to the market
Mhm.
and came back. And when she came back, she got ready. He didn't come, and he didn't come. And then she realized, she started checking around the house. He had been home while she was gone, taken all his clothes and left.
Oh.
Left her in a foreign country with not knowing how to really speak the language well, not having a job. He took all the money out of the bank account, so on and so forth. Okay. Nonetheless, she did find her way back to the States. And of course, she's pregnant. So she's like, how am I going to have this baby here? She was able to get back to the States with the help of family and friends. And all she could do is think to herself, I hate that son of a so and so. That bleep bleep to bleep blam is just, I'm going to kick his blah blah blah, but on and on, right? That's all she could think.
Mm.
But she, out of that really very painful experience,
Mhm.
what she what she recognized was, okay, well, I have this beautiful child. And so as she was thinking and seeing her child and mothering her child, she would think, well, at least he left me with something decent. But that son of a duck. And
Right.
anyway, long story short, she actually moved into the ministry. And one of the things that she knew she had to do was forgive him, because that anger, that bitterness was also attracting experiences to her that she didn't want. You know how so many people say, I'm a good person. Why did this happen to me? Well, maybe you're holding on to something internally that is so deep, and still, when you think about it or speak about it, has such a visceral reaction. That could be an energy that's attracting some experiences you may not want to have. Just saying, possible. And so, anyway, she changed. And this is my bottom line point to this in terms of forgiveness. Intellectually, she knew she had to forgive him. She knew that she needed to move along a different road. But it was the process that helped her move into forgiveness on a very authentic level. Because she started off with, I forgive you, you such and so, I forgive you. I'm not feeling it yet, but you, I forgive you. And she did that consistently for several times a day for months, until a point came where she went, I forgive you. So, whatever his name was, I forgive you. And then she's like, okay, I wasn't calling him the MF word or the this and that. That's a little different. And then so she continued, and then she's kind of checking in with herself, right? And then she said, oh, I truly forgive you. Oh, I forgive you. And so she continued to the place where she honestly and earnestly forgave him, and forgave him so much so, when that lifted and she went into forgiveness, she literally met her soulmate. He met his soulmate. What she came to understand is that because of how she was, he could no longer stay with her for his own survival, if you will.
Mm.
Although he never expressed it, she realized that she could not have stayed with him, and probably wouldn't have if they had moved back to the States together and moved forward. But at the place where it was left in the story, they both married other people. They both became great friends. And even when he was having some challenges with his current wife at that time, as a minister now, she was doing marriage counseling with them.
Wow.
So it's a great story.
It,
But
yeah.
it's a true story about forgiveness. She was honest about it. She didn't just go, okay, I need to forgive, so I forgive you. No, she was like, I'm saying this out loud. I'm writing it out. I'm expressing it. But the reality is, my heart's not feeling forgiveness, but my mouth will say it anyway. And that was the process until her words,
Hmm.
which by the way, sound reverberates, goes out into the universe and comes back to you, because it recognizes your voice within 7 seconds, which is why what you say and the words you use are very powerful.
Hmm.
That's just a little side note. We can talk about that another time.
Oh, yeah.
So as she continued to say the words, it's coming back to her and it's resonating. And so it just continues to resonate, and the vibration, even of the words, I forgive you, it has a higher resonance. And so as you continue to do that, as she continued to do that, she moved into actual forgiveness. And up until that time, she went to school to be a minister. She was raising this child on her own. It was a struggle. She went through a lot of challenges, and had no money, had not a lot of anything. And she was still going through her process. But once she really let it go, she met her soulmate. once I was able to forgive and continue along my journey, I connected with my soulmate.
Mm. It's it's very, very powerful. And
Hmm.
you know, it I'm I'm sometimes I'm at a loss at words of how powerful that tool has been. And you're so right. When you were sharing the story of the couple, I was just thinking about. I remember one time being in it's really weird. I was in a corporate training, and
Hmm.
that's when I learned fake it till you make it. And what was interesting was this. It's not a story about forgiveness, but I just want to dive deep into that quick, like this practice of like, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to try to be forgiving. I'm going to take on I'm going to put that coat on. So one of the things I remember was I was having a hard time. It was after my father had passed away. I was having a hard time at work. And we had done this training. And one of the things she said was, sometimes in the corporate environment, you may not feel like being in there, but when you're in a leadership position, you have to show up as a leader. And there
Hmm.
are days when you don't want to, or you literally cannot. And you
Hmm.
have to like fake it till you make it. And so I was struggling at work, and therefore my performance was struggling. And I lead a team, so their performance was struggling. And I remember hearing fake it till you make it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna fake it. I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna be the top performing supervisor.
Hmm.
Like that's who I'm going to walk in as, even if I don't feel like it. So I'd walk
Hmm.
in every day. I have the top performing team. Oh, we were at the bottom of the bucket. I have the top performing team. I am the top performer. I am going to inspire my team every day. So I'd walk around and say hello to each one of them, even
Hmm.
though I was like, don't feel like saying hello to you. I had all the things going on. Your performance is like, I just wanted to blame them. I wanted to blame my boss. I wanted to blame everybody else. Um,
Yes.
my dad for dying, like everything. I just wanted to do
Hmm.
the blame game. But every day I walked down the aisles. I said hello to my team. I said hello to my colleagues. I sat at my desk and I probably work like this. But, you know, however, I put on the face, and over time, it just magically happened. I was not faking it anymore.
Hmm.
I was walking in and so glad to be there and saying hi to my team and connecting with them, because what that did, it allowed me now to connect with them in a way that I probably wouldn't have connected had
Hmm.
all of those circumstances not come to play, had I not done the practice of
Right.
stepping into that piece. And when we bring it back to forgiveness, even trying to forgive my abuser, it was a every day, okay,
Hmm.
the memory comes up, process the memory, let go of the memory. For me, I had to be like, okay, I wouldn't be here this way and the way that I am if all of those things hadn't led me to this point. And really, what I got out of the whole lesson, believe it or not, was forgiveness.
Hmm.
Like at such a level that there are people who are like, I can't believe that you were able to forgive that person.
Hmm.
And I said it wasn't about the person. I had to let go of trying to forgive,
Hmm.
even if the person was still alive. To forgive them alive or dead is irrelevant. It
Right. It's
really
true.
was. I
It's
was
true.
so angry, Lynn, like angry. And I
Hmm.
yeah, got to the point where I couldn't even be with my own self anymore. Like, okay, you
And
need
that's
to
kind of tough when you can't be with yourself.
yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, we need to process this and I need to forgive. And it was a practice. It actually
Hmm.
took me years. It wasn't,
Okay.
it took me years to
Of
forgive
course.
at the level that if I heard a name, had a memory, something happened, I didn't have a visceral reaction to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I had a situation where I was raped when I was very young. I was only 5, and I completely forgot about it. But going through my process, it wasn't until I was 33 that the memory of it came up. But it wasn't just the memory. It was, as you said, the visceral. I could smell his breath. I could feel him on me. I could feel him in me. I could see I was in the room again. All of that.
Mm.
And I processed through it at that time through meditation. This is why I also know I had been meditating already for about 4 years, but it it brought me to the point where I had to call that up from deep within, even though I forgot about it. I had to really call it up to let go of it.
Mm.
That was the reason for it, because I'm like, I'm a good meditator. Why is this coming up? Why does it have, why? I'm like, oh my God. It was not just the thought of it. I actually relived it as if I was in the moment. That's how deep it was.
Mm.
And when it started coming out, it took me 3 months. Like, well, I always meditate twice a day, but even meditating like in between that to like, I gotta clear this stuff out,
Right.
um, to fully release it. But when I did, and of course, this person had long since passed away because he was like a great grand uncle.
Mm.
And so, uh, what I came to realize as I'm meditating, and so I clear it out, I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much for that experience. I mean, I wasn't even thinking it. It's what was inside of me. It was the thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for that experience. Wait, what? If that act at the age of 5 had not happened in the way that it did, truly would not be where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my journey, even in reference to men, was always connected back to that situation that
Mm-hmm.
I had no awareness of, right?
Right.
So when I read the story about my, you know, wonderful, beloved teacher, that's what I call him now, my beloved teacher, um, that was kind of like it's like the scab that's on a wound, but the reality is the wound never healed because that wound is so deep and so far back that it looked like it had healed because, here's the scab.
Yeah.
But with the experience I read earlier, and you rip that scab off, and I did go into forgiveness and all of that, which was beautiful. But it also let me know that, because of the pain, there's some more things I needed to do, which is how I got started.
Mm.
And then it became time to now, after, having become ordained, after starting this work for about 4 years later, that's when I realized, oh, my consciousness is able to remember and the wound to the core
Mm-hmm.
so that it can be released and so forth. So I even when I think of him today and I talk about him, I have no more visceral reaction of anything on any level, and the only thing I feel for my abuser is true divine love. That's all I experience. And the same thing with my beloved teacher in the story. When I think of him, all I feel is just, a wonderful kind of divine love. But there's no more of that longing and that heart and stuff, and all of that's gone.
Yeah. And time is take advantage of it when you have the time to do the processing. And I feel the same way. I've said thank you as well. Thank you for
Hmm.
teaching me, because there's this book called Radical Forgiveness. I think I talked about it already.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I really love that book. But one of the things that I really got from reading that particular book was about what you said, when we come to learn lessons. And um, he talks about, it's Colin Tipping who wrote the book. He talks about the soul contracts that we make. Like, we literally have a tribe of people we travel through with, and this might be a little hard for some people to understand, but it's a belief that I have that, if we are souls and we've come here to learn some lessons, we actually, and we forget what those are because otherwise then you wouldn't learn a lesson. You have this conversation with a group of other souls and you say, hey, here we are at a table. These are the lessons I want to learn. What are the lessons you want to learn? What do you want to learn? What do you want to learn?
And
Okay,
how
how
are
are we
we
going
going
to,
to serve each other?
yeah, how are we going to serve each other? How is this all going to play out? And then you go and have the play. You go play a game, and the game is something you requested, you initiated, and all the players are doing exactly what you had
Mm-hmm.
asked them to do. When I
Mm-hmm.
got that for myself, or that worked for me, it may not work for everybody else, but having
Right.
that thought saying, wait a minute, I asked for this, like from the perspective of I wanted to learn this lesson, and this is the way it had to play out for me to learn the
Mm-hmm.
lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you. You did your job and you did it really well. And that is
Mm-hmm.
where I was able to finally, like I told you, it took years. It was bits and pieces of chipping away at, over like 20 years of
Mm-hmm.
abuse. It just like that forgiveness didn't happen for me right away. But when I understood that and I was able to see that, it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay. Well, gosh, thank you. And then
Mm-hmm.
every time after that, I thought about, you don't remember every single thing every time you have a pain or something like that, right? So I thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, every time it comes up, I'm like, oh, huh, well, this made me resilient. Thank you.
It's
This,
true.
this taught me how to be compassionate. Oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is supposed to be teaching me about boundaries. Huh. Okay, thank you. Now, it doesn't happen just like that. Like
Well,
I told you,
yes.
but it is a process. And for me,
Eh,
I'm a talker. So for me, I've just been very blessed to have so many wonderful spiritual leaders and guides in my life that I can
Mm-hmm.
go to and kind of just do my verbal diarrhea
Mm-hmm.
and get what I need to help me process all of those things. So,
Yes.
whatever it takes for someone to do that, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a coach, whether it's a spiritual teacher, whether it's a book, or a podcast
Mm-hmm.
or, a video, whatever it may be, I really strongly urge those of you who are grappling and struggling and being challenged with the weight of whatever you feel has happened to you or what actually has happened to you, not feel what has happened to you, to take the time to give this gift to yourself.
Yes. And also to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to say is everyone's time for processing and to process is different. What took you several years based on what took place with you, for me, took 3 months with that particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was years later. And so in my own way, I was processing through it, just didn't know it. Um, but it even the length of time that we process through things is up to us because it's important we do our share of the work. For example, if you're going to work out with a fitness trainer once a week, you're not going to only work out once a week and think, you'll have progress, but it's going to take you a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
But you're the one that has to either get up in the morning or in the evening or whenever you've designated the time, either pick up those weights, do those exercises, and keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
And that's how you actually get through it. So I agree with you, Nina. Being able to have a life coach, a counselor, as you say, watching a podcast, listening to podcasts or music. There's so many different ways, and there are plethora of healing modalities, which is what we at Miracles Resources are working to bring to the table. So even if you haven't heard of something, you're not familiar with it, it may resonate with you. Someone may resonate with you. There's something you can gain from it so that and learn that you can practice. even, on your own, so that you can work through these things much more quickly, and hopefully, although it feels very painful, it can still be a little bit easier. And yes, we do have soul contracts. As you were saying, when we all, certain spiritual beings come in together, it's no different than the director and producer of any movie or any play that you watch. They create the cast that work with each other, each playing certain roles
Mhm.
in order to create a dynamic story. And even in watching film and theater, you're going to learn something. You're going to grow from it. It's a mirror of life as we experience it, with all the different characters and personalities and everything else. Well, that's also what happens when we come in, as you say, with a group of souls that we will connect with. And I wanted to say this final thing. When you move into complete forgiveness, you know how you're there is when you're no longer experiencing it in your body. You're not obsessed with it in your mind. It's not hurting your heart. And you can say, "Whew, thank you. Thank you for showing up in my life the way that you did. That was phenomenal." When you can genuinely say that and experience it, you know you have moved into complete forgiveness. And even if you've not gone into forgiveness yet, if you can do what the other story of this woman I was sharing with you can do, I am grateful that so and so is in my life. I am so happy I had that experience. I am in appreciation of the part that this person played or this experience has had in my life. I'm grateful for it. You may not feel it at first, you may not believe it. You may feel like you're being disingenuous, but you know what? It doesn't matter. You say it anyway, you think it anyway, you allow yourself to feel it anyway. And as Nina was sharing in reference to her job, as I was sharing in reference to that story, doing it that way, you'll move into a place where you will one day say, "Oh, this is true. I didn't think it was before, but no, it is." And I'm thankful. I'm really thankful.
Mhm.
You know that you've moved into
Oh,
forgiveness.
yeah. When you
Yeah.
get that joy, like, I mean, you do get to a place where you're actually joyful because now you don't
Yes.
have all of that angst and anger. And you're like, whew, thank goodness, because I didn't like that. I didn't like how that felt. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a final thought, first of all, thank you. Thank you for bringing up this conversation. So just so that you know, Lynn and I never know what we're going to talk about. We kind of now I've started to press record. We kind of ramble it out and figure it out, and then we just go into a conversation. So thank you so much, because this topic means the world to me. I mean, I have another podcast that's kind of a little bit on hiatus. It's called From Victim to Victory. It's all about stories of forgiveness. And because I know it is so powerful. So for those of you, once again, who have your own story to share, we would love to have your comments, share your
Yes.
stories. If you're looking for support, come to the site. It is a miracles, uwresources.com. Click on our directory. You will find healers there to support you. If you're not sure what to do, send us a message. We are on all kinds of social media. We're on LinkedIn. We are on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. So we're everywhere. So reach out to us, look for us, put in the comments if you need something. We're here to help you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking your valuable time to listen into our conversation. We hope that it's made a difference. Thank you for joining us today on Healers Talk Healing. We hope you've been inspired and empowered on your holistic healing journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to continue learning and growing with us, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, and review our podcast. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Remember, healing is a lifelong journey, and you have the power to transform your life in profound ways. Stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop believing in your own capacity for healing.